timing of that song was perfect to kick us off for Wasa Wednesday. We've been gone for a few weeks. Excited to be back. But as you can see, things are crazy for ADs across Washington State. We got 60 of our closest friends here today, and looking forward to seeing even more of you at our conference in June of this year. Hey, today we got a pretty, what I think is a seamless agenda. I'm going to turn it over to Dave Tikker in a minute. We're going to pay respects to our friend Robert Polk. We're going to talk about the Wasa conference, and we're going to give WIAA a chance to update us on the most recent executive board meeting. So without any further introduction, Dave, please take it from here.
Good morning, everybody. Just wanted to take some time this morning and talk about our friend and colleague, Robert Polk. As most of you know, he passed away last week at the very young age of 54. A number of us went to his memorial service at Everett Stadium. You know, the very first thing that I noticed that was so positive is I got to see a bunch of you that I haven't seen in a long, long time. And from handshakes to hugs, I just can't believe how therapeutic that was to see everybody during a tough time when we're, at a memorial service. The memorial service was terrific. We had Don DeZiel and Julie Stronczek and Tom Rose all spoke at the memorial service, and there were so many great things, but the thing that resonated with me probably the most, there were a lot of tears there, and there were a lot of smiles and grins when people talked about Robert and all of us that knew Robert. And I think the one thing that resonated the most with me was his brother, when his brother went out and started talking about how competitive they were growing up. And he shared a story with us about Thanksgiving. A number of people have that tradition. They go out and they'll play football on Thanksgiving. And he says growing up, him and his brother got in their share of fights, but they always had rules. And the rules were you didn't hit above the neck and below the waist. Those were the rules when they actually got into a fight. So they were playing against each other. They chose up teams and they were playing against each other in this touch football game, touch tackle. It just depends on who was there and who was watching. But both of their wives were together in a car. They were watching the game and they hadn't seen them play. And I think Tom's brother's wife, they were going out at the time. So anyway, they got into it, and they got into a fight, and all the rules went away in the fight, and it was kind of a knockdown, drag out fight. And I just started laughing because I put a grin on my face because I pictured the moment that my brother and I think I was 30 and he was 29. We're playing one-on-one in the gym. And I think I threw the ball at his face, and he put his hands up to protect himself and dislocated his finger. And, here's these brothers going after it. And I just, how many other brothers were doing the same thing? And, growing up, they're competitive. And one of the things that Robert's brother said at the very end, he says, we grew up, we kind of outgrew that, but we grew up being really competitive. And then later on, we were trying to make each other better men. And I just thought that was kind of a profound thing to say, because I think my brother and I share the same thing. So I first met Robert years ago before he came on the Wasa board. And like many of you who's had exposed to Robert at one time or another, I was sitting at Rep Assembly, and we were digesting a subject that there were lots of different opinions. We've all been there before, and we've seen some of those subjects that have come up. And it was getting kind of heated, and all of a sudden, this is the first time I remember being around Robert. Robert raises his hand, and Robert's called on, and Robert says something, and all of a sudden everybody stopped and just started listening. Wow, that's really smart. Wonder why we didn't think about that. And everybody's just sitting there trying to digest, where did that come from? And how come we're so engaged in this dialogue, so intent on trying to get our way, that maybe there was a better way. And when we were at the memorial service, it was funny how many times we heard that. that Robert seemed to provide this calming influence when he was with the group. There were lots of people at the memorial service that had those moments with Robert. His natural leadership style, which was very unassuming and very humble, lent itself towards many of us gravitating towards him as a mentor and a friend. Robert was on the Wasa board, and I got a chance to work with him firsthand when he ran the state conference, and then he became our Wasa president. And what a wonderful time as I as I look back for our friendship to blossom and for me to try and absorb the good that Robert brought to the table. On a lighter note, Robert had the best sense of dry humor of anybody I'd ever been around. He could make me laugh at the drop of a hat, and along with that humor came some common sense wisdom that elevated our association. Robert completely changed the format of our conference program, and we use that format to this day. Many of us on this Zoom call have been the recipients of Robert's servant's heart, his wit, his camaraderie, but most important, his friendship. When I sent out an email to all the ADs in the state about Robert, I received one back that I would like to share with you. And this one was from Eric Canton, AD at South Kitsap. This is what Eric said to me. He says, in the email you sent out, the next day you mentioned a scholarship being set up in Robert's name. I wanted to let you know that if there's some process that will take place to come up with a rubric of sorts for what kind of person would qualify for consideration under deciding who meets the standards Robert exemplified in his daily life, as difficult as that may be, and who wins the scholarship, I would be honored and privileged to have some sort of involvement in that process. I think I would be a valuable asset to a group of this nature because I have a completely different perspective than any other AD in the state. I grew up with Robert. We'd known each other for almost 45 years, attended the same schools, played on the same teams, coached with him on a football staff here at South Kitsap, and I leaned on him to point me in the right direction or provide feedback as I moved into the role that I'm currently in. He was gracious, available, and he was a patient mentor. This is my second year as an AD, and I would say 99% of how I have approached this job came directly from him. He was on my speed dial, but he was always there for me, and I'm so grateful for him sharing ideas and sending me everything he had about this job. Not sure I would have survived on just trial and error, especially with COVID. He took my hand and he led me down the path of least resistance and used his experience as a learning tool for me. Thanks, Eric, for sharing that and letting me share that with everybody else here. And now I just want to take a couple minutes if there's anybody else that would like to offer some brief comments about their relationship with Robert. Why don't we take a few minutes and do that now if you'd like. And I know for me, it was very therapeutic to speak to others. And I've spoken to quite a few people about Robert's past and how it affected me and how much I cared for him. So just take a couple minutes. Anybody like to share briefly, and then I'll kind of wrap it up.
You know, Tick, I went to school with Robert at UPS. We were in the same recruiting class, graduated together, and we were pretty tight as I went into this role. And again, as Eric stated, leaned pretty heavily on Robert and his expertise and some great phone calls. And we lost a good man. Not just an AD, but he impacted a ton of people's lives, and will be missed.
I feel the same way. I've heard this said before. I think the thing that really, I mean, just the time that I worked with him, he was always even keel. We had to work through a lot of challenges over the years and different things, whether it's dealing with public private school challenges, whether it's you know, other things that came up along the way. It was always focused on what do we need to do to help kids, and he was never at a loss for coming up with several solutions to any problem. We would talk in the morning, and then he would touch base with me later in the day and have a couple of different things for me to take to other people and other groups and stuff like that. And it just, every day I feel like I miss that opportunity to reach out and talk to him again, because I know that on any given bad day, if you talked with Robert Polk, your day got better. And he was so human. And I still will remember his son was wrestling, and they came to our tournament, and just being able to just stand and watch him as a dad be a part of that. Those were great moments.
Thanks, Scott. Anybody else?
Thing I always
So-
appreciated about Robert, he just, no matter what you needed, you could go to him. And he never felt, I was a newer AD, a district AD, and there aren't a lot of us out there, but, I could always go to him, and he never made me feel like it was, a stupid question or anything like that. He always was willing to help. And, from time to time, he'd call me and we'd bounce ideas off each other, and and like somebody said, just a great person. Way more than an athletic director, and I often hear people say, it's what we do, it's not who we are. And that's, particularly true with him. He's just a great person. And I was honored to know him, and, going to miss him. So, like everybody else.
Thanks, Brian.
Tick, I want to add from a different perspective. I didn't know Robert that well. Only worked with him a few times on a committee, and saw him maybe cross paths with him maybe 5 or 6 times in my life. But those times I could tell I had a friend. Just like many of you, our colleagues across the state, every time I saw him was a fun experience, and I could tell I had a friend.
Thanks, Rock.
Tick, I would add, Robert was really involved in professional development, and in our business, we're quick to put out slogans or sayings that we hear over and over. And but Robert did the work. And when we were revamping our DEI committee, he called and he says, "Hey, I know you're probably not trying to populate that committee with people that look like me, white males. For our perspective, you hear our perspective, but in my roles, I need to help my schools, and I can't help my schools if I don't learn and know more. And I see this as a great learning opportunity for me. Can I just please sit in and listen?" And, so here's somebody who embraced not only the work, but was walking his talk on what he wanted to do. And no surprise to any of us, with his work on that DEI committee, he found a seat that his expertise and experience could help enhance that work with the committee he was on at his passing. And so, that's what's probably most remarkable, Robert, is he just found a way, and he was genuine, and he wasn't about slogans. It was just get the work done and make it a better place. So anyway, it was really cool to hear all the other examples of the professional development he had helped facilitate.
So Wasa is going to be initiating an LTI scholarship that will be in Robert's name. And at one time when we started this idea, we thought, okay, well, we'll give one scholarship away a year where somebody can work towards their CAA, and we're going to, Wasa is going to, and then after a lot of discussion, we were thinking, well, you know what, why would we give one? Why wouldn't we provide an opportunity if we could sustain this? And I'm working right now with some people to help us sustain this, where any AD in the state that wants to get their CAA exam that I think what we're going to do is Wasa is going to pay for 2 of their 5 classes and also their CAA exam fee. And if they want to pursue and go to get their CMAA, Wasa is going to pay for their application fee, which is pretty substantial for the CMAA. So Wasa wants to do that, and we're creating that template right now. Eric's helping us with that. And I think any AD in the state that wants to pursue their CAA and professional certification will have Robert's name attached to that. And I think, when we talked about this, we also talked about how important it was for ADs to have some skin in the game. So instead of just fronting this, that maybe what we would do is we would reimburse ADs after the fact, and we pay them back for the classes that they took. So then they have some skin in the game, and then they could pursue this. But Wasa would be there. If there's 10 a year, 10 people that are pursuing their CAA, Wasa is going to pay for 2 of those classes and the fee, the $150 fee for their exam. So it's going to amount to about a $350 commitment for any AD that wants to pursue professional growth. And we have a board meeting here in a couple of weeks, and you never know, that $350 might turn into something even more. I mean, this is just that important. And, we're going to perpetuate Robert's legacy. When we do the scholarship, and we'll report about it at the conference every year. Robert's going to be there with us. So just kind of ending with this segment, I just say thank you, Robert, for the tremendous influence you had in all of our lives. We will miss you, but we'll always remember you and the difference you made in the lives you have changed. If you go on your chat, I have put some information that if for those of you that might be interested, one is the Everett Herald article about Robert. Another is a scholarship that the Everett School District is initiating that you can donate to, and that information is there. And for those of you that were really close to the family, I've included Robert's wife, Tara, and their address. If you want to send them a card, you can do that also. So that is in the chat right now. And I will kind of sign off on my tribute to Robert. For those of you that had a chance to deal with him, he's always going to be there, and his influence is always going to be remembered. So thank you, Robert. But at this time now, let's move on. I'm going to interview Cole Kanya, your conference chair, and we're going to kind of give you a little bit more information about the conference coming up June 23rd. So Cole, you there, buddy?
I'm here, yeah.
Okay, so I've already answered question number 1. What are the upcoming dates for the Wasa conference? How does everybody register, Cole?
You guys can go to wasa.com, and then there's a little button when you get to wasa.com that navigates you to your AMP login. And once you get to your AMP login, I'm going to share my screen here and just show you what you'll find. And it's the registrations here for each event that we have going on at the conference. So can you guys see my screen? So showing up, Tick?
Yeah.
So you got the conference wine tasting, the golf outing, any LTI conferences that you want to sign up for, as well as the general conference registration. So you'll see this at the bottom of your screen once you log into your AMP account. And you can register for any or all of those events for our conference.
So instead of asking you question number 3, I'm going to move to a quick little survey that we're going to put out. BJ, are you ready for that?
I'm ready,
So
Dave.
Okay, we're giving away a free golf foursome for the conference. So if you have 4 people you want to play with, it'll be free, and throw your name on the survey when BJ sends that out. So there's 2 giveaways that we're going to give. We're going to give away the golf, 4 rounds of golf, and a free room at the conference. So those of you that maybe are struggling a little bit with your budgets and not sure how to fund this, every Wasa Wednesday from now on, we're giving away a free room for an AD, maybe more than one. We'll see. I'm working with another sponsor trying to make that happen for other people maybe that are struggling financially a little bit. And so anyway, here it comes. Fill out if you're interested and you want that free golf foursome. We will have an answer for you. We will pick. We have a special way that we're going to pick that. And by the end of this 10 questions, and maybe it'll be more, hopefully by the end of the 10 questions, we'll be able to tell you who won the free golf foursome and who gets their room for free. So go ahead and fill that out real quick.
Do you I don't have a foursome. Do you need to be in a foursome to join the golf tournament?
No, you do not.
Okay.
The leverage that gives you is you can pick whoever you want, or you can ask who'd like it free and just pay me $30 and you can have it for free. The foursome, Carrie, the foursome would just be in your name. And we'll figure that part out, but yes, put your name in there. That'd be terrific. So BJ, should we move on to the third question while they're doing this, you think? Keep going.
Yeah, keep going. We got lots of people filling out the survey. So whenever
Okay,
you're ready.
cool. What will some of the highlights be of the conference?
Well, we got a number of highlights, but I think the main highlight for me personally is that I get to see whoever is coming in person and not via Zoom. Zoom was a great tool and it still is an effective tool a year later, but when we started using this last year, it was awesome. And man, it was great to be able to see people's faces, even though we were in quarantine. And now it is time to see each other in person and toast Robert Polk and celebrate what has been undoubtedly the most challenging year in our professional lives. And that we get to move on next fall into hopefully what is like our normal season. So beyond the in-person meetings and gatherings, we get to honor our colleagues who have been nominated and selected as ADs of the year at the banquet. We have a number of speakers, some of Washington's own, who will be presenting at the conference. This year's conference is going to take a little bit different feel. Not only is it our first conference we get to host in Kennewick at a beautiful facility, but based on our current climate and situation, it's going to have a much more casual atmosphere as opposed to some previous conferences that we've had. And being summer, it's going to reflect a lot like what we did in the summer summit a few years back. We've got wine tasting, golf tournament. We have socials built in. Joe Keller and the Chicken Joe and the Fabulous Cox are going to be playing live music, as last time I heard. So, and then on top of that, Dave has brainstormed and figured out a way to give away golf, $2,000 in cash prizes, a new set of golf irons, a weekend for two in Suncadia, and then whatever kind of cool giveaways the vendors have to give away. So again, this is going to be a little bit of a different feel from anything we've had, not only because of the facility, but because of the celebratory atmosphere we're going to have.
Okay, so Cole, why should ADs attend, knowing how tired everybody will be by the end of the year? I know a lot of people are burnt out. What will be the advantages of being together, you think?
Well, I kind of answered that in the previous answer, just in terms of collegiality and getting to hang out with people and just having for those of us who are extroverts, getting to talk somebody's ear off for for a while and commiserate, and talk about all the challenges that we've gone through. But also too, we've got a number of LTI offerings that we're excited to offer. So if you're in pursuit of your CAA or CMAA, you got an opportunity to take some new LTI courses. We get to be together. We get to encourage each other. We get to talk about best practices. We get to bounce ideas off each other. I think again, the celebratory atmosphere you'll find is going to be much more vacational than it is going to be sitting in a classroom and in a learning atmosphere, though you definitely will improve as an athletic administrator after this conference.
So, Cole, where is the conference? Where's it going to be this year?
In Kennewick, Washington, at the Three Rivers Convention Center. There's 5 hotels in very close proximity. Or if you're somebody who has a camp trailer, there's a number of people I've heard who are bringing their trailers as well. So You know, we might just be able to get Sam Hunt to come play parking lot party for us and and really class this thing up out in the parking lot of the convention center. It's huge. So no, it should be a fun time. But there's 5 hotels. There's one, I can't remember which one it is, Dave, that's very family friendly. It's got a pool right on the river. If you want to bring your whole crew, please bring them.
That's the one in Richland. It's a couple miles away, but it's right on the Columbia. There's bike trails, there's the boat trip, outdoor pool. So that's kind of the family one. If you wanted to bring your family, it'd be kind of a cool place to go. The climate in Kennewick, average temperature is 83 during those June months. So that'll be nice too. So new ADs, Cole, if you remember the first time you attended a state conference, what did you come away feeling at the end of the state conference? How did it benefit you?
Well, it's funny because every year that Steve Bridge presents, and he's going to present again this year at some point, he scares me to death and makes me want to quit my job right after I leave his breakout session. So I was scared of what Steve Bridge had to tell me, but beyond that, I was just blown away about, you know, some of you that are longtime veteran ADs and your presentations. You know, I remember, you know, talking to Tim Graham and being the new guy and having Tim share with me a lot of things that he's doing at Tumwater. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just seeing, wow, like the largeness of our job across the state and seeing what other people are doing. I was able to take one cool thing and apply it. And I've kind of had that kind of attitude with everything conference-wise for the past, 10 years I've been an AD. I've been going to the conference for 7 of those 10 years. And so not only being able to take LTI classes and pursue my NIAAA certification, but on top of that, being able to steal ideas from people like you, I think is what the most meaningful part of the conference for sure.
There's a tremendous sense of we that takes place at the conference. I think a lot of people that are fairly new go in kind of isolated, kind of a me, and, you know, where do I fit? And I think it's been my experience that the networking that takes place, there's some really unconditional moments from all of us that, you know, we meet with new ADs the very first evening before we even have our social. We spend an hour just with new ADs and let them get to know a few other people. And, you know, it's very oriented towards feeling like you belong. And that's a very powerful thing. It's something that I think we all need to feel. Anything else, Cole?
Well, I think on top of that too, Dave, this Zoom platform over the last year has kind of allowed us to see one another. And though maybe some of you and I have not met in person, like I really want to meet everybody too. And being a new AD, that's super intimidating sometimes. I know it was for me at my first conference, you know, and over the years, I've gotten to know guys like Russ, BJ and Tick, and I mean, the names go on and on and on. So if you're a first year AD or a younger AD that, you know, you want to pick some people's brains, I guarantee that everybody in this meeting is willing to sit down and chat you up. So that was where I definitely was as a young AD. The only person I knew was Cindy Adset, and she hated my guts. So.
Paul, now you got to give me a little bit more than just that.
No, I was a baseball coach, run a baseball tournament, and I might have come off a little hot a few times. So
Cindy's not the only one, Cole.
oh, geez. Hey, there's another John. Thank you, Mr. Applegate, for chiming in there. If you have not seen him host the banquet, you haven't seen much, because this guy is the host of all hosts, man. Stand-up comedian, but also making people feel really special as they should. The guy's got the ability to do it all.
Well, thanks, Cole. I appreciate sharing that. A while back, I sent out a scholarship, Final Form scholarship template, and there's 5 scholarships to the conference, registration conference scholarships that Final Forms is giving out. We have 4 right now, so there's still 1 available. My guess is there's going to be another 5 coming up, because I'm working with another sponsor. So if you're struggling and you could really use some help with registration, when I send this recording out tomorrow, when we get this recording back, I will send that final form scholarship out again. And again, we have one more. We have 4 filled so far. And I just want to say one more thing about the Wasa scholarship for the LTI that Eric's working on right now. And again, it's a little fluid, just because there's so many people that kind of want to give to this. So I have a sponsor right now that said they would match any funds that come in for this. And we just kind of need to work out the details. I wanted to share that with you, but I don't want to ask people for money until we really kind of fine tune this. So that'll come. And probably within a couple of weeks, we'll probably have something to give to you. But I know there's lots of ADs out there and even Wasa that are going to start this process and try to seed this scholarship and keep it sustainable. And I do have a sponsor right now that will match anything that we give. So there will be a giving component for this if people would like to give to this, but hold off on that right now. Okay, we're going to figure that out. Eric's sitting there thinking right now, yikes, Dave, you didn't tell me that when we talked the other day. But we'll figure that out. I mean, it's kind of fluid, and that's a good thing because I think we all want to do the right thing for this for the right reasons, and we want it sustainable. So that's kind of the last word about that scholarship. Eric, is there anything you'd like to say? Eric Canton?
No, it's been kind of a difficult process trying to get this down on paper, but you know, everything I've heard is exactly who he was. And so as I mentioned in my email, it's an honor, it's a privilege to be able to do this in his name. Thank you.
You know, each year Wasa, where some of the seed money is going to come from, each year Wasa gets money from the NIAAA and NFHS for coaches that take classes, and it's money that we haven't budgeted for. So at our board meeting here in a couple of weeks, we're going to talk about taking that money that we get every year and putting that in the Robert Polk LTI scholarship, and that's about $1,500. So, and if we start with that and plus other people can come on board and help, the sponsor I have that'll match it, I'm hoping to get maybe $5,000. And I think that's a pretty sustainable amount as we move on and we budget for that every year. So anyway, okay. So if anybody has any questions, we're through with our part of it, and we'll turn this over to BJ and the WIAA.
Dave, do you want to do your other survey?
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you explain it and then I'll send it.
This
one's the hotel one.
Okay, the free room for the hotel. I'm sorry. Yeah. So this is the free room for the hotel. If you want a free room to the hotel, and that'll be great. Just put it down there and we'll get back to you. Do we have?
Dave, if you want to do the golf, you can just pick a number between 1 and 52, and I will tell you who your winner is.
Okay, one
Or
between
you
1
can
and
get
50.
somebody else to do it, or you can do it.
Okay, 1 and 52. Lauren Sandhop, give me a number.
Number 10.
Your handicap. That's a perfect number.
The
Who's number 10?
winner of it is Lance Denbor from Kai-B. Number
Lance.
10.
Okay, Lance gets a foursome. Lance, just make sure you send me an email, and Cindy as an administrator will figure that out on AMP and get your team going.
And
Thanks,
on the
Dave.
hotel.
Thanks, Lauren.
Oh. You can give the hotel one here another 15, 20 seconds, and then I can
Okay.
give you a set of numbers. Let me see if anybody else is going to jump into it. You could have somebody pick a number. We're going to close that one off between 1 and 42. 1 and 42.
Onset, give me a number. Julie, did you hear me?
Only the last part of my name came out when you said that, so I wasn't sure. Lucky number 7.
Devin,
Lucky number 7 is Rick O'Leary, Lake Washington High School.
You're welcome,
Larry.
Rick. That'll cost you a beverage.
No problem, Julie. Happy to pay that.
I'm sure there'll be a few of those. I'm sure there'll be a few. So Rick gets the room and Lance gets the golf. Okay, we're going to do that again our next Wasa Wednesday. And depending on how registration is, there might be more than one. So back to WIAA. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Hope everybody's doing well today. We have a couple of things on our agenda. The first one is Cindy's going to wrap up just covering the last few amendments that we haven't covered. And then we're going to give you a board update and a little WIAA update and opportunities for Q&As. So Cindy, I will go ahead and share my screen and we'll start with, I believe it's Amendment 7. And you can take it from here. Once I get that up, I know.
Oh, I can pull up a.
I got it right here.
Got it? Okay.
Yep, got it. Can you see it okay?
Yeah. This one just adds, and BJ, this is really, since you oversee coaches education, you could probably give them a little bit more on this, especially since it will tie in with offerings that we'll have at coaches school. So it kind of all wraps into that too.
Right. So this amendment is really to add a few things in the coaches education requirement, being adding some opportunities for education in bullying, hazing, harassment, SEL, suicide prevention, and adds a new category, diversity, equity, and inclusion, with several items. The idea here was, number one, just to expand what coaches are learning, because it's really vital to working with our kids. And secondly, knowing that many school districts are doing this kind of education, so it is valuable that it would be applying to their coaches certification. The other little piece of it is that it does require 1 hour in each of the categories. We've always said that it may, but not limited to these. We are now going to require at least 1 hour every 3 years in each of these 4 categories. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, we'll move it on to Amendment 8.
Okay. Number 8 allows for a school to play in either 20 single games or play 19 single games, and then in a tournament that has a maximum of 4 in basketball. Many of you are aware that basketball has attempted many, many times to try to increase the number of games that they can play. In this format, this amendment really does bring it in line with the same language that there is for volleyball. The exception is in volleyball, you can play up to 4 matches in a day. Basketball, you can still only play 1. So they could play in a total of 23 games, which would not include a foundation game if they choose to play in one of those. And it would also not count the game against an Australian touring team would not count. And you can do one of those games once every 3 years.
Okay, number 9. I don't see any questions.
Actually, I'm going to turn the next 2 over to Justin, since he's back up for football and number 1 guy on wrestling. And then I'd like to circle back and add a little bit of clarification to one of the amendments we've talked about earlier.
Sounds great. JK.
Okay, so excuse me. So number 9 is around the high school summer season, and so this just clarifies that within the maximum of 10 practices with contact can be with the use of any equipment are allowed. So regardless of the number of coaches and/or players involved in any given practice. So this just excuse me, expands outside of the 20 allowable practices that have been put in place in the past. But you still only get your 10 days of practice with contact. So that just clarifies this and opens it up to allow football teams to have the equal opportunity to have as many practices as every other team in the summertime.
I don't see any questions in the chat. Number 10.
And then number 10 is around just the match limitation for high school wrestling. And so right now the allowable contests are 6 in a day, and then you have our limit on outings. And so each day of competition must count as one of the 16 allowable team dates, except as indicated below. And this would change a 2-day wrestling tournament to only count as 1 day or 1 outing instead of 2 outings as it currently does. So this just changes those larger tournaments to allow them to be a 1-day count.
Great. And Cindy, what's the other one you want to take a peek at?
Actually, I'd like to go back to number 1. This is the one that would consider flag football, 7-on-7 football, and sand volleyball to be separate and distinct sports. I just want to make sure all of you know that sand volleyball is 2 versus 2. So it's just two people on each side of the net, and it has to be played on sand, and it has to meet some very specific dimensions. So I just want to make sure you knew that. That was really all.
If anybody has any questions on any of the amendments, now would be a good time to bring that up. And Cindy can try to answer those, or anything about the process. I think the voting process is scheduled to begin here fairly soon.
Yeah, and I know that Andy Barnes will be sending out the surveys, basically, that you'll fill out. He's going to include the district directors. If you are a rep assembly delegate and you do not receive it, please reach out to Andy. Some of your school filters do not allow it to go through without some kind of special magic that you have to figure out on your end. So it should be coming out. It starts on the 29th. You should receive it that morning.
Great. Carrie, I'm not sure which amendment you're referring to. I'm going to go ahead and do our presentation for our staff, and then we can come back to that if you'd like to. So let me get my PowerPoint up here. All right, we're ready to rock and roll. So first thing, Mick's going to talk about some COVID updates. Take it away.
Okay. Yeah, so we know that there's been mixed messages coming out. We apologize for that. Here's what's happening, and I'm assuming most of you can relate to this, is that as soon as we get an answer from the state, either the governor's office or Department of Health, we're trying to turn around that information so you can adjust accordingly. What we've experienced the last 3 weeks really is vacillation between what those answers are. They've changed their minds a couple times, which in this case, this one changed for the better. With the phase 2, phase 3, and again, we'll be seeing another adjustment. They're telling us the first week in May. Wherever the contest or activity is being performed are the rules you're under. So if a phase 2 school travels to a phase 3 county, you can play basketball in that county. If the phase 3 school is scheduled to go to the phase 2 county school, you cannot play basketball. So where the contest is are the rules we are under. So then we got the question, if 2 phase 2 schools have a site in a phase 3 area, can they play basketball? Well, technically under the rule, yes. So that's not really the intent, but they have told us. And this literally was a 3-week change on Friday. And so where you're playing are the rules you're under. So for phase 2 or phase 3 guidelines, there were some subtle changes to some of the sports specific rules. And Justin, do we have our paperwork caught up on that, you know, on the site?
I believe we have gotten things updated, yes.
Justin,
we just saw
I put this slide up. Is this the one?
So the governor's document does not specifically call that out in their updated document that they sent out on Monday. So there's it's a different set of language, BJ.
Okay.
So for right now, we're working on trying to get clarification. We still have our Friday meetings where we get a half hour with them to nail down some of these details. This clarification came out on Monday and it's not what they told us on Friday. So for right now, the county you're playing in are the rules you are under. Refer to the documents for clarification on what those rules are, both for sport and in general phase 2 and phase 3. So that's really that's a great change because it gives our phase 2 schools more opportunity. It just may mean you have to travel. And what we told them as part of that negotiation is it's highly likely that if there's home and aways, they can be flip-flopped, and as school or counties rotate back to phase 3, they could be the host site. So
JK, you want to talk about wrestling and maybe the next one? Unmute yourself, JK.
Sorry, I thought it did. Can you go back one slide?
You bet.
So as I just alluded to, the governor's office did update their document. Oh,
You want this one?
yeah. So they did update their document on Monday and had a couple of minor changes. So one change was that they call out track and field specifically to explain that track and field as a low contact sport has the same opportunities as cross country did and can lower their mass when they are actually competing. So when they're running a race or when they are making an attempt, if they are standing in the back getting ready for a race or on the side preparing for an attempt, they need to have their masks up at all times. That's in phase 2 and phase 3. But when they're making those attempts or running the race, they can actually lower those masks, and they just need to have them back up when they have finished the attempt or the race. And then it also includes cheer now with dance and what is allowed in phase 2, which talks about competitions and performances. For dance, that was originally dance only. And then cheer had been excluded from the previous update. So when they updated the document on Monday, they included cheer in there as well. So that should make that more clear for everybody. Okay, BJ, next, go to that wrestling one. Okay, so I know that there's been a lot of conversations that took place last week around COVID testing protocols for wrestling. This had come out from conversations around water polo as well. So the water polo community was very active in trying to get water polo allowed to play as they had been deemed a high contact sport as well. And so the governor's office and DOH began working on a testing protocol with antigen testing. And as they were working through the channels and the information from the water polo community, got that word out a lot quicker than we had anticipated. And so just fielding a lot of questions. We are waiting on the governor's office and State Department of Health to decide on what the testing protocols are going to be. I think it's fairly safe to say that testing will be likely. And what that looks like, they're still finalizing the details. So we're kind of waiting on that final word before we can push out all of our information. I will say that we've been working on this for quite some time now with very, very short timeline to be able to roll this out and to hopefully make it as easy as can be for athletic directors. And again, we know that this will put a lot more on your plate and on the plates of your staff and your students, but we do also know that it's the only way that wrestling will be allowed to move forward in our state this year. They are anticipating making those decisions this week and hopefully sooner than later, as I know that there's a number of leagues that plan to compete next week. I will say that if the testing kits are not at your schools by that time, you will have to push your wrestling matches or contests out and delay them by a week if that's the case. So they will be requiring that you have the testing in place before you can actually wrestle in a match. So we are again trying to communicate this morning with the governor's office to get a timeline on when they foresee the announcement coming out so that we can push our information out because we know that we cannot really send anything out until the governor's office has made it official. That's been a challenge through COVID. already. So that's kind of the wrestling update for now. Again, we have everything ready to go on our side. We're just waiting for the green light from the governor's office that this is 100% going to happen. And like I said, we anticipate it and understand the frustration that your coaches and your wrestling communities are going to have. But I would say that, and I'll tell everybody that calls and emails that this truly is the only way for us to move forward in wrestling for our state. As much as we have tried to get the testing piece removed and just go with masks, this is where we're at. So that's the decision that's been made and the protocols that we have to go by. And so in order for the wrestling season to take place, this is what's going to have to be done. And again, there's tight timelines for getting these tests. For those of you that have later wrestling dates, I would suggest that you jump on this quickly so that you can get your testing kits as quickly as possible so that you're prepared and ready to go. But those of you that plan to wrestle next week or in the next 2 weeks, it's going to be even quicker for you to get those done. And I know that there's a roll of questions that are
we'll let
coming in,
Justin
so-
kind of review the questions. Cindy, Mick, anything else in the chat or COVID related that you want to speak to while Justin's perusing the chat?
Yeah, I know, this is going to throw people for a spin, and I'm dealing with a couple ADs that have absolutely lost their minds over this as they heard some rumblings. This is what people need to understand, though, is wrestling was not going to happen until Justin started bringing in all these examples from around the country of where they've done it without testing even well. And so the compromise was they required testing. People are frustrated with it being last minute, maybe having to push seasons. We fully understand that, and as are we. That being said, we learned about this a week ago Friday, and by Monday morning, Justin and their staff, the testing company, had a online training, 2-minute drill and everything else in place, ready to go. But then we got delayed by the state. So that's what we're still waiting on with the adjustments on the timeline. We are being told that, and there's a bunch of questions here, and Justin, you cut me off where you need to, but all the questions you are asking will be answered when you get it. There's a process. The test will be delivered to you. You'll be trained on how to order them, where to get them. The state has a huge federal grant that they're using. There is a small cost. It looks like maybe of $190 per school. For those of you, there's 100 school districts we've been told already doing some testing that you'll already have that part taken care of. So you just need to listen in, figure out, Justin has put together this with their team to where any one of us could walk through it. So we know you're going to have a lot of questions. They're going to be answered when it comes out. We're hoping to be able to push it out today, but again, until they tell us go, we're not going to do it because we want to avoid more confusion. So we fully understand the frustration, especially at this time of year with everything else going on, but this was our only chance to offer wrestling at the high school and middle school level.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and try to knock off a few of these. So if you're testing, one of the caveats in this is that if your school or school district is testing already, then you just will have to abide by the 2 tests per week for those kids in order for them to compete. What we do know is one of the days that testing has to take place is the day of a competition. And so you'll be required to do testing twice a week on kids. So if your school district, like I said, has a plan and they're already doing testing, which Debbie Ventler said that their school has been doing rapid testing since February, you're going to be all right, and you won't have to operate within this program. And again, this program is optional as far as utilizing this one. If you come up with your own and you're going to order your own testing kits and stuff, that's fine. It's just the antigen rapid tests, which are available. It's going to be through Binax now. Russ, I think that answers your question. And so the kits will be provided through the Health Commons project, which has been working with the Department of Health. And like Mick said, there's this large storage of these tests that they seem confident that they'll be able to get out to schools in order for you to be able to order these for your entire season and for every kid. So they'll be coming from that company. and it'll be that specific test. Again, Nick also said that there's a $190 fee. There's a little bit of uncertainty from my end of whether this is per school or per school district. I've seen it in the writing that it's per school district. So for multi-high school districts, you're going to have a break, I think, at just 190 for this COVID waiver. So there's a specific waiver that allows you to be a quote unquote testing site. And a lot of your districts may already have this CLIA waiver in place. So you'll need to check with folks in your district. And you just need to make sure that you have the COVID waiver as part of the CLIA waivers that you have. So those are some of the bigger questions. And then a lot of this other information about how you order and all that, that's going to be in the video and the information that we send out. And middle schools will also have to follow the same protocol. So the communication will go out to middle and high schools. And I think that answers a majority of the questions that have rolled in. And we will also, I'm going to be jumping in with the Health Commons Project folks to have office hours at certain times in the next couple of days. I believe we have office hours set up for 3:30 today through their Zoom links, and there's only space for 100 at a time in there. And so we're trying to do these multiple days and twice a day to be able to answer as many questions as we can.
Anything else?
I know
Tikker?
there's a lot of people that are just asking about contact information. Again, please, I know it's hard to be patient, but please be patient. All of this information is going to be in the information that we'll send out once we get that green light, the green light from the governor's office.
So essentially you'll run these in your schools. The training will authorize you, will prepare you. The meetings I sat in, they said it's like administering a pregnancy test. I said, well, I'm old enough that doesn't really resonate with me. So, but the folks who lead the testing have said it's very simple. The testing will be based, they want to try to do it the day of events where you're going to be competing against other schools. All that will be in the document. So we hope to have all these questions answered. We've been talking with the risk management groups, so they're aware that this is potentially coming. So we're hoping that things will be structured in place, fully understand all the questions. Rick, I didn't think you were, I wasn't talking about you when I was talking about people being frustrated. This is a lot to throw at you in a short time. We just want to try to give you a little bit of lead time, knowing that it's going to be a really, really quick turnaround and it's going to disrupt some of your plans. We apologize. Again, our goal with our advocacy is to provide opportunity. This one did not work out as smooth as we like, but we're thankful the governor's office and Department of Health didn't just stay with no. And then we can choose to do it. A couple questions about tournaments popped up. In the documentation, WIAA has an exemption to be able to run tournaments. They have specific language in there for statewide organizations that oversees interscholastic activities. We still get to have our tournaments. So the planning that you've been doing for your other events, that's not interrupted. So the tennis tournament question, absolutely. Again, it's your phase 2 or phase 3 guidelines where the event is taking place. Somebody else asked the question, can 2 phase 2 schools go to phase 3 county to compete? Technically under the rules, the way they explained it to us, our answer is yes, you can. We know that's not the intent, but you technically, if where the contest or activities being held are the rules you're under for all of that. But we do have the exception for contests. So spectator, as spectator adjustments happen, you just need to know whether that county is phase 2 or phase 3 and go with those. So again, a lot of people have been very complimentary of the staff, especially like with what Justin's done the last week to do this. We as a staff fully understand the ADs have it the worst right now. And we really apologize for complicating your world even more. But again, we want to provide the opportunity. So once the guidelines come out, you got more questions, please ask them. Then we'll be happy to turn them around quickly.
Great. I think we're going to move on in the PowerPoint, and then we'll definitely come back to any other questions that people might have at the end. So Mick, you want to do the board action? We have a couple of slides on that.
Yeah, so, we were very, very fortunate to share with people, our budget's around 4.7 million. So it's a pretty small budget for a state association. We were looking at a deficit of over a third of that for this year when COVID started. And due to the work of a lot of people, Leah Francis specifically, we were able to accrue a couple PPP loans, which took a dent out of that. And then OSPI and Superintendent Reichdahl, who's very vested in education-based activities. We started a conversation early in coming to the office, and he reached out and was checking in on what we could provide. He really wanted to get kids back participating in some way. And as we shared the situation and had those ongoing talks, there's actually funding provided through some of the federal funds coming in that we just received to help. And so, so our board was, so accepted those on Sunday night in our board meeting. In addition, the Yakima Nation through Legends Casino made a generous donation. And so those eligibility forms that some of you are using that are now in 10 different languages were made possible by them. And so we've been very fortunate. You know, our team has been reaching out, trying to find partners. And we've had, you know, not only the federal government through PPP, but and then indirectly through OSPI, but also Legends Casino help with that. So we're very thankful for that. It will make a big difference on what we're able to provide moving forward.
Great. I don't know if Cindy or Mick want to cover the openings on the executive board.
I'll take a run at it. Cindy, you correct me when I mess it up. I'm learning. So we have our region. We have region A, B, and C positions on the board that were put in place years ago, specifically to bring a diverse perspective to the board. And those are up for election this year. So region B comes out of districts 3 and 4. That's Wendy Malich's seat. We need a nomination for that from those districts by June 1st. Section C is the 5 districts on the east side. That's John Cerna's position. So those are up for their 3-year term. The at-large or combined position, that is the 4th one for the purpose of bringing that diverse perspective to the board. That's John Walworth, the principal at Chiawana. John was scheduled to be he's our vice president this year. He led rep assembly for us and has done an amazing job. Not only in his region, but throughout the state. He has accepted a position in Utah. And so we're losing him. So his position is open. So we're waiting on all districts to bring that forward. And I know your district boards are doing that. Once those are sent to the office, then we will have a subcommittee. If it's unanimous out of one of those regions or all the regions, then the board acts on that. If there are a variety of folks, then there's an interview process done by the board. So our goal again is to bring that diverse perspective to the board, not just ethnically, but also through positions within organizations. So John Cerna, for example, is a superintendent. John's the principal of a large high school. We have district athletic directors. We have working ADs out of 2B schools. And so we are looking for gender, we are looking for ethnicity, we are looking for positions within the association and school districts. And so it's a great tool for us. We have really good people, and we look forward to receiving the applications from around the state to continue that work.
Great. I think I did a pretty good job there, Mick. Nice job. Cindy gave you the thumbs up.
That's
We
tough.
have a handful of changes in our handbook that were proposed to our board. The first couple I'll cover are around membership. So we talk a lot in our handbook about the renewal process for membership and the school board resolution, which you're pretty familiar with because that happens regularly every year, but it really actually wasn't in the handbook. So we add a little bit of language. And this is the current practice that you will complete your school district renewal for your membership and your school board resolution by the second Friday in June and update your member profiles by mid-July. We also, in our handbook, it talks about a representative and how the representative gets to have a vote and how the representative goes to fall workshops and takes the AD clinic. It seemed like practice around the state is that the representative is actually the AD. So we went ahead and indicated in the handbook that the school representative will be the athletic director unless your school board designates differently. At the same time, we altered the language to say that the school representative would do the fall workshop and the school representative would take the AD eligibility clinic, which are things that you've already done. We also added the language that if the school representative cannot attend fall workshop, that you will send a different administrator in your place to take care of that. Justin, you want to take this one?
Yep, so this editorial change just clarifies that when injections occur, those ejection reports are supposed to be submitted through your My WIAA accounts within one school business day. It continued to list 24 hours in the handbook, so we just updated that to reflect that change that we had approved last year, which is one school business day following the completion of the contest. So this gives a little reprieve, and you're not expected to submit that over the weekend. So if an ejection occurs on Friday or Saturday, you've got until Monday to get that fulfilled. So it's just a clarification on that process.
Justin, you also have a Q&A that got added.
Yep. And so with this weird COVID year, we had some instances where seniors not seniors, excuse me, some kids had gotten their second ejection in the same sport. And so the question was whether or not they would have to sit out all of next year. And so this Q&A was just added into the back of the book that when the student receives their second ejection of the sports season, and it was the final game that second ejection took place, would they have to sit out for the entire next sports season? No. If the student was ejected for the violent conduct policy, then they would be suspended as outlined in the violent conduct policy. So they would either serve it in their next sports season or the next school year when they go back to play in that sport. If it's a one-game suspension, then they'll just have to fulfill the suspension and it will just carry over into the next season. So just a clarification and a Q&A added to the back of the book to address that situation.
Thanks, Justin. We also offered a transfer Q&A into the back of the book. Sometimes we have families that will purchase a new house or move sort of mid-year and want to wait until the next school year to actually do the transfer. So we cleaned up. The past practice has been that in order for them to be immediately varsity eligible, they would need to make their transfer at the time of the move. So we wanted to clarify that. So that is a new Q&A in the back of the book as well. Coaches School is going to, this is really just to save the date, July 19 through 22. So it's a 4-day week. It'll be available virtual or on demand. We hope to have registration open on May 1st, and there are discounts to schools that send multiple people. So I just want to make sure that those of you who are looking for educational opportunities for your coaches, this is a really great way to do it. The cost will be probably somewhere around the $60 range. It's a pretty good deal considering your coaches can do it virtual or on demand. They can also get clock hours for that as well. It's kind of a one-stop shop. They'll be able to get all of the requirements in those 4 different areas, suggesting that the amendment passes. And it's just a morning event as well. So typically starts before or around 8 in the morning and we're done by 11. So it's 2 or 3 hours in the morning. But again, they can watch it on demand. So they do not have to be present to be able to get that. Some additional updates. Justin, you want to take these next couple?
I got this one, or does Mick have this one?
Oh, Mick has this one, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just so you know, you're going to be hearing about girls flag football coming out as a club sport this spring. So the Seahawks have been trying to get this up and running for a couple of years. Seattle Public Schools was looking at doing it, and then with the pandemic and everything, it just was not feasible. So James Neal in Tacoma, they wanted to start in a large urban district, the Seahawks. So James Neal has put together a plan. He invited in Franklin Pierce and Bethel. We just learned Bethel is not going to be able to do this. So there'll be Tacoma and Franklin Pierce. They're going to be starting early in May with a jamboree and then moving into a brief season as a club sport. So the Seahawks are helping get that off the ground. Nike's helping to get that off the ground. So if this goes well, which we have seen girls flag football as a tremendous success in Florida for over a decade, in Georgia and a few other states that have it. that we will anticipate them maybe bringing forth trial sports. And so again, for it to become a trial sport with the new amendment, we would need at least 80 schools engaged in that. So it may be something to pay attention to. Check in with James or Wendy and Franklin Pierce as they go through the process. The Seahawks and Nike have said they would commit to helping try to find a way to support that in some way, shape, or form to continue to expand it. So it's an exciting opportunity for girls, and we're hoping to be able to bring that throughout the state if it goes as planned. Questions and concerns we know that come up right away are, well, are we adding new girls, or are we just shuffling them from other sports, right? And our goal is to add new athletes, not just shuffle. And so part of the process will be surveying the girls that do play and find out what other sports they have traditionally played, and to see what the impact of that is. Are we drawing a new athlete? Are we moving them around? And where would it be least impactful as far as harming other sports and improving overall offerings? And so most likely a fall or spring offering to be determined.
Great, thanks. You want to touch base on this, Nick?
Sure. I know allocations really aren't very important in our regular work, but we wanted to provide a brief update. So this is the second year of an allocation cycle upcoming. We're in the first year this year, and obviously it did not take place. And so our plan is we will do a 1-year cycle next year. So we'll be collecting that information each season, and to stay on the same rotation for a variety of reasons. One, we know border schools on the east and the south are on the same rotation with those border states, and it allows for scheduling of home and aways, moving forward. The second piece is with our new rules around classification with appeals. At the next fall, schools will be able to apply for that next 2-year cycle for an appeal, including those schools that were granted the first time. We would not be able to complete that work between now and then. And so next year will be, when we've worked with district directors, so district directors are aware of this. We know there's some, internal challenges in different parts of the state. So for example, if you have a large volleyball contest or basketball or football contest, you need to decide, who gets to host it. Those are local decisions. Decide, do you split the revenue? Does somebody luck out and somebody is left out? But so for us, we're going to have a 1-year WIAA allocation cycle, and we'll stay on the long-term schedule for classifications and allocations. Also with that, I'll add, I know the question has been asked a couple times, what our plan is with big venue tournaments. Our plan currently we're working on securing those contracts is to have tournament formats as they were pre-pandemic, and to host them in sites that were pre-pandemic, assuming that our hosts will still host us, which some of those are you. So you'll hear from our team reaching out to confirm those as the spring continues to happen.
Great, thanks. A little bit of an update on just membership in general. Our staff started in November working on a significant project intended to really reflect on our relationship with our WIAA membership around exchanging information. And we identified 3 major areas that we are trying to tackle and take on. Communication, technology, and compliance were the 3 areas. And our staff, like I said, has been working since November to try to improve or address these areas and how we interact with you as a member school. So in terms of communication, I just want you to know that we're working on a WIAA public calendar that you'll be able to subscribe to that will be available in the fall. We're also taking a yearly AD task list that has been created in a more general and make that specific. So to make sure that you know as an AD what the timelines are to make sure you're meeting handbook expectations and rules, so you are in the loop on what needs to happen. And then the third one is we are working on some potential kind of video trainings that ADs can have to help them navigate the WIAA platform, like My WIAA, as well as some different WIAA rules and things. So we're just really tackling these things in terms of improving our communication going into next year, as well as just a communication strategy to make sure that you know, like kind of like the 2-minute drills. I think people got used to knowing that if you got one of those, it was important, take a time, listen to it. So we're working on how to make sure that we're going to keep you fully informed going forward. In terms of technology, we're not making any changes right at this moment, but we are actively reviewing our forward-facing website as well as my WIAA, and wanting to make sure that those systems are working in the very best way possible for you and for us, and the way that we exchange information back and forth. So that is kind of more information later. And when it comes to compliance, we're really going to focus on 3 things this year. So these might be important for you to pay attention to. If you're multitasking, like pay attention for like 30 seconds right here. Ready? As you know, every AD needs to attend fall workshop. So the dates are going to be between August 17th and 26th. We're going to have 6 in-person workshops like we've always done in the past. We're hopeful we're going to get to see you face to face. August 31st, we are going to offer a Zoom workshop. If either A, you cannot attend one of the in-person, or you are not comfortable attending one of the in-person. Either way, we want to make sure that's available to you. But again, you are required to attend that as an athletic director for your school. The second one, in terms of compliance, is that every AD is expected to do the online eligibility clinic. That's done through my WIAA. We'll open it in July, and it will be due September 11th. Again, these dates will all be part of that public calendar and the communication that's going to come out. The next thing of compliance is just to remind you that right now is a really good time to get yourself on that school board agenda, because come May 1st, we're going to nudge you and say it's time for your district to do their renewal and for your school board resolution to be completed. That is expected to be completed by June 11th. So write yourself a note, get on the school board agenda, dive into that process. There's also, when you dive into my WIAA at the end of June, early July, you're going to be nudged to update your member school information, what sports you're offering, the head coaches for your sports. Hopefully you have them. We also recognize in mid-July, you may not have your coaches. We understand that. But just to get you to update your information, one of the things that we've discovered is sometimes information isn't getting updated. So we're going to nudge you to do that as well in July. And the last piece of compliance is that you will be nudged August 1st with your WIA service fee bill, the bill that will be sent to you. That's due by November 1st. And if you don't pay by December 1st, you will be inactive and you will not be allowed to play in any competition. That's all written in the handbook. We just haven't been real great about holding people accountable to that. So we're building a system within our system to communicate to you, to give you plenty of nudges and reminders to make sure that these compliance things get taken care of. So we're super optimistic about that in our communication strategy. And in terms of these service fees, Mick has some good news to share with you.
Yeah, so as a follow-up to the grants, so we're going to just end up a few $100,000 on the wrong side of that ledger, it appears. But that being said, when you are billed every year, you have 2 fees. One is your membership fee, which we appreciate everybody taking care of this year. Got us through the year with so we could have all these faces on the screen. And number 2, there's an L&I fee. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with this, this is a pass-through account. So rather than, and this was a deal brokered, I've been told over a decade ago with the state, rather than schools having to figure this out for all your officials and come up with a set fee every year, the association agreed to do the billing and do the paying for this. This is a very volatile fee. We have, Leah has shared with me, and she's not here today, but that this has increased up to 15, 20, 30% in some years and dropped drastically. So early on in the process, the WIA office was actually in arrears in this account, having to cover for schools out of the reserves. That being said, several of you asked great questions at the start of the year, like, why are we paying membership fees? So we explained that. And why are we paying L&I fees if we're not playing? And so we said, well, we will evaluate at the end of the year. And if those fees are not utilized this year, we will adjust accordingly. So I'm very happy to tell you that Leah has done that. We got our first quarterly payment made. It was down. We anticipate these probably going up quite a bit moving forward, but we have enough in that reserve account right now that we will credit all schools for LNI fees for next year. So for small schools, it might be a couple $100. For large schools, it might be a couple $1,000. So again, you know, one of the things that we will never do is jeopardize our integrity. And when we tell you something, we're going to do it. And in this case, Leah's been watching those accounts, and all of you paid those LNI fees. There's enough in that account. We're comfortable that even with an expected increase, we will be okay for next year. And we know 1660 is coming at you hard and fast, and with other challenges out in school districts. And so it's the right thing to do. And so we're going to do it. So when you see your bills, you will only have the service fee charge for next year. This is a one-time credit. We will continue to evaluate. I don't see how we could do it again, but hey, at this point, I'm not going to say never to anything from what we've experienced together the last 15 months. So anyway, so good news for schools. You can anticipate that. You work with your business office folks to get what your number normally is, and that will be a difference in your bill coming forward.
Great, thanks, Mike. And the last slide here is just some upcoming dates. We're doing these Wasa Wednesdays just once a month now because of board meetings and knowing that you guys are busy. And WWE with Jeff Lowell is still happening sort of on the in-betweens. So these are just some reminders of upcoming dates. I did put this PowerPoint in the chat earlier, so you're welcome to pull it if you would like, or if you didn't get it and you would like a copy, some of you send me emails and I'm happy to send that off to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And at this time, we are done with our WIAA presentation. I don't know if there's any questions. People are welcome to throw them in the chat, unmute themselves and ask a question if they want.
Hey, BJ.
Yeah, go for it.
As you can guess, there's a lot of questions. And so one of the questions was from Casey Gant, was about the positive rapid testing. And let me preface a lot of this by saying that this is based on the information that we were given last week and as of Monday. I don't know what tweaks have been applied to the governor's document before any type of a release. So going off of the information that we have already is that if a student tests positive, that student would then have to go get a PCR test done that's a little bit more in-depth and a little bit more clear and better at whether or not there's a positive test. So the antigen test will have a certain percentage rate of, and there's always possibilities for false positives. We know that, and so the PCR test is why that's required. And so within that, our understanding from that previous document is that would shut down wrestling for that day for your group, and that is because of the high contact sport category. Plus, they consider everything to be close contact. I've pushed back on this, given the knowledge that most wrestling rooms, you do not have every kid wrestling with each other. They're broken up into small groups, and there's plenty of space around those to be able to allow for some flexibility within that policy, but that was to no avail. And so they will consider everybody on the team to be in contact with one another, despite, if it's a kid at 285 that contracts COVID, even the kid at 106 is going to have to not wrestle for that day. And that's very frustrating. But again, that's where the Department of Health and the state is at on this. So that's the reason for that protocol, and the reason why they consider everybody to be a close contact within that. So there's some further protocols that are in place within that document. But again, until we see the final document, I can't really go too far into detail because I don't want to misspeak on a lot of this. One question from Jeff Peets was if we wrestle 3 matches or 3 times in a week, testing on all days. No, it's just the 2 that's required. So basically the way that I've kind of wrapped my head around this is that you'd want to do a test on Monday. And then they say about 3 to 4 days after that initial test, then you should test again, which would leave you to a Thursday, Friday, Saturday competition to do that second testing. And Rock, to answer your question again, I need to see what they have put in place for the protocol for how long that would put you down. Casey had asked a follow-up question that if the kid tests negative, does that pull everybody out, or does it pull just that kid out? Have to wait and see what the actual guidance document says in order to be able to answer that.
Mick, I wanted to circle back to that tennis tournament question. You kind of touched base on it a little bit, but in scheduling a golf tournament in our first season, which would have ended in the first part of March, there was a guidance that was in place that said that tournaments were okay for golf, whether you were in phase 2 or phase 3, because we hadn't even seen what the phase 3 guidance was, and tournaments were okay for golf. But now I go back and look at that same document, and it's been edited in March. I think the last edit was 23rd, and all that document has is phase 1 guidance. And then there's a general phase 1, 2, 3 graphic that says all of phase 2, no matter what sport level it is, says no tournaments. And if we would have been on that same guidance, we wouldn't have been able to have a golf tournament. So my question then is, because we're in Pierce County, that's the county that we're in, our league wants to have a tennis tournament, but based on that new graphic, it says we can't have a phase 2 tournament at Clover Park. So we're scrambling to see if we can do that in King County in one of our other schools that is in King County phase 3. So my question is, when did that change? And does anyone know why phase 2 low contact, moderate risk, or low risk or moderate risk sports were changed to no tournaments at all?
Yeah, it's a great question, Shane. I don't have an answer for you off the top. I need to double back with the folks who are working on those documents to see, make sure we have it, one, right on there. And then number 2 is we'll get some guidance out today for you. So, okay, thank you for clarifying the question.
Hey, I'm going to take a stab at it because I'm just looking at the document. And so again, I think the prohibition on tournaments that we've been provided for, so in the governor's document, again, updated on the 19th, was the tournaments in phases 1 and 2. And then the prohibition on tournaments for sporting activities does not include postseason playoff, state or regional championship competitions with no more than 4 teams at one site. And so golf so this is geared towards team tournaments. And so I think that our tournament formats still apply. And for individual sports, this still allows for those individual sports to have those tournaments. So Shane, I think as I read through the governor's document and going off of what our previous position has been, you'd still be able to provide a tournament for tennis and golf in phase 2 counties based on that information and through those protocols. Because that is your postseason tournament.
Thanks, Justin. I think that's the missing piece that we were looking for, was that was the guidance, was that it's a postseason. So thank you for.
Yeah. Page 6, for the actual bulleted item, and it's at the top of page 6 on the governor's document.
And the other piece, as you're working through the governor's document, it's really important to remember they have given us an exception for WIAA. That document applies to everything from T-ball tournaments to our stuff. And so, but we have the exception for the tournament. So that's the challenge. That's why I want to make sure that nothing has changed, because sometimes we're seeing changes. We just got an email from the Department of Health and the governor's office in regards to wrestling. They're hoping to have an answer for us in the next hour or so. We anticipate being able to give you some more details. So please, I think we really appreciate those kind of detailed questions. because it gives us a chance to make sure we're putting the right information out the first time.
Any other questions? Anything that we can answer for you?
BJ, Don Erickson here. Did you get that message about when do we register for the fall workshops? Or do we register for them?
Yeah, you do. We're hoping to have that all up and running here in the next couple of weeks for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. District directors are confirming locations and dates, and so then we'll get that ready.
You.
Cole, do you have anything to close us today, to inspire us?
Oh gosh, I just want to encourage everybody, if you haven't already registered, to register for the conference. I'm excited about it. I hope you are too. I know it's going to be the tiring end of a year for many of us, but would sure love to toast you guys and celebrate all the work that we've done this year. And thanks to Justin, BJ, Mick, the rest of the WIAA staff for doing all the work that you guys are doing. And as we enter this final push, you guys, just want to, yeah, I'll tell you what, I've looked at job boards more than once over the last 6 months. It's been crazy. So I'm sure some of you are right there alongside with me, but like I said, I hope that we can commiserate and celebrate both at the same time this June in Kennewick. So hope everybody has a great week. Thank you for joining us this morning. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Have a great week, everyone.